Appetite for Distortion.
And welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode 230. My name is Brando. Going to be a fun episode today. A couple of things are back, I should say. We have a segment that's coming back, Fan Obsession. Looking forward to it. But it's as important, I think. What else is back?
Oh, Axel.
Buttons. Buttons are back. Yay. Thank you. That's how sad I've gotten. I've had to insert my own applause as we continue to feel our quarantine, or my quarantine, segueing the Guns N' Roses reference into everything as we do here. I'm at home. Obviously, I had full studios normally at iHeartRadio in Tribeca, New York, but I don't have that at home. I have some cool things, setups, but they're not meant for button bars, I guess.
That's pretty radical.
Radical.
They are radical. Duff and I don't know what baby Ninja Turtle that was that said that specifically. But I finally set some up for today. I won't go crazy, but more importantly, Fan Obsession. And I'm tying it into my co-host for the day. Another thing I'm bringing back. I want to give the opportunity that you, the listener, have given me doing this silly little 6 degrees of GNR Bacon podcast, getting me to talk to all sorts of my heroes, your heroes. You know, I do my best to ask your questions to these ladies and gentlemen that come on the show, but I want you to be a part of it, like literally. So I thought this was a cool opportunity to have a co-host, a fan co-host. So welcome, Matt. Do I want to say your last name? Do we just call you Matt? I mean, that's kind of boring.
Matt Gordon is probably the right. People are going to, like, there's so many Matts out there. Everyone already calls me Matt Gordon anyway, so that's the best way to go.
And Matt Gordon also, that doesn't help. Give me if you give me like a spinner wheel of just, I mean, it's a lovely name. You know, I'm the douche who has to go by Brando instead of Brandon Weisler. So, but Matt Gordon, very professional.
Oh yeah, I always get that a lot. And then it just works out. A lot of people have to use, like you said, you have to use Brando, and I luckily just get to use my full name.
That's cool. And where are you calling from? Because you're West Coast. Where are you calling from today, if you don't mind me asking?
I am calling from Portland, Oregon. Yeah, born and raised.
Wow. I have never been. My brother Tristan, who often listens to the podcast, and my brothers are not GNR fans. They like them, but they're not like me, you or I. They happen to actually like what I'm doing, which is weird. But he's been to Portland many times, and he got me a Portland Winterhawks hat.
Oh yeah,
and
I've got.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I've got like 5 of those guys.
Because it's interesting because it looks exactly like the Chicago Blackhawks logo, almost. Maybe there's like a leaf difference or something really very subtle. I did my research on this at the time because I'm like, why would you get me a Chicago Blackhawks paraphernalia or apparel in Portland? He's like, no, it's a real team. I guess the owners way back in the day were friends, and they both kind of like the same logo, and they both agreed to kind of to have it, but made with little differences. So that's my only connection. This is I would have worn it today had this been a Zoom episode, but we're just connecting over phone. Back to the podcast, back to focusing on audio, which is important. And I also realized my email is still up because I'm waiting for like yeses from people, and maybe I would make a breaking announcement of, there's some hopes out there for interviews, but I'm looking forward to, because you're going to help me. We're going to call him in a few minutes. I'm looking forward to him as anybody else. And I'm glad you are, which is, in addition to loving Guns N' Roses, you love Me First and the Gimme Gimmes.
It's actually funny that I'm on this podcast. I actually discovered Me First and the Gimme Gimmes and Guns N' Roses around the same time and almost exactly the same place.
Okay.
Because, I don't know if you remember, before YouTube, there used to be a lot of Flash player, like video sites, like E-Bombs World and Newgrounds, stuff like that. Yeah. So there was, I don't remember the exact names of the videos, but I believe that the Guns N' Roses one was called Decline of Video Gaming, and My Michelle was the theme song for one of their episodes. And then like Me First and the Gimme Gimmes Country Roads was a background music for this cheesy like fighting game, like Sprite fighting game I used to play. So I actually discovered both of them very much in the same way. When I got older, my best friend Dylan, who I told I would give a shout out to,
right on,
was a big Me First and the Gimme Gimmes fan, so he got me more into them. That's the first time I heard them.
That's
so it's
cool.
actually kind of, yeah, it's a funny coincidence.
No, that's perfect. Wow, I didn't even know that. That's why you're meant to co-host this. This episode.
I figured I'd save the story for the air, so you would be surprised by it.
Look at you. You are thinking. You're thinking radio. I love it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like maybe the same time as I'm really formulating my rock taste. Yeah, there was the Guns N' Roses, and I did like the 80s, but I shopped at Hot Topic. I wasn't full emo. I wasn't as far as maybe with the hair and stuff like that. I was still rocking what I called my Axl Rosenberg phase.
Oh, yeah. I think I remember seeing an old picture of you from your Bumblefoot interview.
Oh,
where you had the long hair and stuff. So that's maybe I'm picturing that.
Okay, fair enough. That was, I guess, I looked more like Scott Stapp than I did Axl, but I really gravitated toward my generation's punk rock. Green Day was Green Day. They were punk once upon a time. And
I love Green Day. So
I do too. They've that's a whole other podcast in itself. But Dookie was my first album I ever got. It was a cassette in my Hanukkah stocking. And
that's rad.
I obviously it was near and dear, and thanks, Mom. But just going down that route, other than just some of the obvious, I love the MXPX, I love the Ataris, and they just leads you to when you create your Winamp to go back to old things. Winamp playlist. Me First, of course, they did covers, but they were all great. I mean, how many cover bands are there out there in the world, and for them to be famous doing it is pretty impressive. And I can't wait to talk to Spike Slauson, the lead singer.
And I think what's more important than them just being a cover band is that they really put themselves into the covers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of it being, because a lot of cover bands, like even cover bands like Me First and Gimme Gimmes that cover a wide variety of music, they'll just kind of do straight covers. And even if they change the music, like when I listen to Me First, I kind of get, I feel like there's passion and energy behind it.
All right.
Instead of like me going to, and I'm not dissing cover bands because I'm in a cover band myself. So it's a different vibe than going to like the bar and seeing a cover band there, where this is like a show and these are people that are arranging songs. You know what I mean?
You're right on. And we're gonna see what Spike means or meant. So hang tight. We're gonna get him on.
Rad.
Okay. So do I have both Matt and Spike on?
I'm here.
Yes.
Matt.
I'm here as well.
Cool. Okay, so I will.
So where are you calling from then?
I'm calling from Queens, New York, right now. You're from Pittsburgh. Where are you located?
I grew up in Pittsburgh, and
Okay.
thankfully, I am not located there today or tonight or in the days to come. Man, like Philly and Pittsburgh are going to get weird, I think.
I can only imagine.
So we have right now, Spike. So Matt is a fan of yours and a fan of the podcast Works Out. He's from Portland, Oregon. I'm in.
Hey, Spike.
What's happening?
Hey, it's good to hear from you. I've been a fan for a long time, so it'll be cool to chat with you.
Thank you. Yeah. I look forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this kind of the last episode, both to Mike and Matt, Spike and Matt. See, I'm already combining the names. Because I also have in the background, because it's a podcast, but I try to keep it in real time. And I mentioned the last one I did. So it's Wednesday the 4th, November 4th, more importantly, 2020. And we don't have a president yet. We still have a country, I think. Things aren't burning down around us. We're all in different parts of the country right now. So if you hear fire trucks or something, we'll start freaking out. Maybe
Matt could tell us better than I could. San Francisco has shifted somewhat demographically over the last 10 or so years.
Okay.
Well, I'm from Portland, so I'm sure everyone's seen this on the news recently. But it's definitely interesting here. I feel like, especially with the media, a lot of what was happening got a little blown out of proportion. like, cause not that important stuff wasn't happening, but like the news kind of made it look like the whole town was a battleground when I was going to the store to get groceries. You know what I mean?
I hear
So
you.
we're doing okay. We're all right, but I guess we'll have to see tonight how everything goes and see this week.
Yeah, definitely. It ain't over until it's over. It's not even over when it's over.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
And I feel like even if we, and I don't mean to presume that either of you are we, but even if we win, we lose.
Yeah.
This whole year has felt like, I don't know, a loss maybe we needed to a degree, some of us, because it's just like, whoa, like where are we? It's like reassessing everything. You know, unfortunately, very unfortunately, people who lost let it be jobs, and we'll talk to you about that, Spike, as we welcome Spike's loss in the tours.
They keep losing their entire industry.
Yeah, and their
People
lives,
are already
of course.
Talking about how inaccurate they were in 2 presidential elections in a row.
Well, at least we have this conversation documented. If something happens, we have this for future generations.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe we can help, or as long as I hope we don't hinder, but
for posterity.
Yeah. Well, Spike, I was wondering if I could ask you a quick question.
Certainly.
Yeah, since I was trying to brainstorm some stuff I would want to ask somebody from me first, and one question I've always had really was just, you guys are kind of a super group of guys from all sorts of different bands from all over maybe not all over the spectrum, but a lot of different groups. And I guess I just would like to know more about how at least the original 5 of y'all came together and decided to do me first. So I guess I haven't heard much about that.
Well, it wasn't. I was actually asked to do it by the 2 guys that had the idea, and I think the idea was born with Mike and Joey as a way to still be involved with music, but not in such a serious, but to have an outlet that was not so serious as their so-called serious bands, which had become sort of, it's like after you've done it for a while, it's like being married to, 3 or 4 other people.
Oh, yeah.
And
sure.
to maintain and sustain those relationships over time, it gets hard and it requires a lot of work and effort. And I think they wanted to start as just and it's a cover band, so we could play live within a week of them deciding and then assembling the personnel, which would have been Dave, Chris, and myself. Within a week of that time, we could have been playing live shows because it was like the songs were already written. Like the decisions were only about how to arrange them.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting.
I mean, as far as a super group, like Chris was not in the Foo Fighters at that time. Me First is still the most well-known musical project I've ever been involved with. And,
yeah, you use the term supergroup very loosely.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, I certainly do appreciate it.
Yeah.
But and I'm more than happy to call ourselves a supergroup. But, no, at that time, I think it was just sort of like an outlet. A way to make music fun again for the 2 sort of people who are behind the kind of conceptual thing.
Yeah. No, it's always funny. I actually knew you guys before I knew any of the. Well, I mean, knew is it, but I listened to you guys before I listened to any of those other bands anyone's involved in. So I actually found out you guys were a super group after the fact, kind of.
Good. That's the best time.
It was me as well.
No,
That's a good point, because you're right. The Foo Fighters weren't in existence really when I discovered Me First, so it wasn't like a super group. I didn't look at it that way. Then you learned about all these other projects. So it was. I agree with that.
Band, it was the dude's band after Nirvana, and he played everything himself. And I think that release was pretty big at the time, but not nothing like what their second record ended up being. I think that's what catapulted them into, Yeah, did they become more popular than Nirvana? I'm not
tough call. I mean, because they came up in such different situations, and it's hard to even gauge that. I mean,
what we all can agree on is that we want concerts to come back and have a fun experience. What Me First provides.
Oh yeah.
So, what were the 2020 plans that were are on hold until further notice, as they say?
They were identical to the 2021 plans that are now
Okay.
Possibly on hold. They involved going to Europe. I think kind of playing one-offs here and there. I don't think we had any sort of like comprehensive North American tour plans, other than like regional things or there. We were going to play that Flogging Molly Salty Dog cruise.
Okay.
But cruises, I think, are off the table for the foreseeable future.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the plan was to play, which is, it's not only how I make money, but it's also, I mean, it is my drug of choice.
I can feel that. But
so how have you been dealing with it? Like, what have you been doing to not go crazy, as Prince once said? Are you keeping your creative juices flowing, or just keep the good feelings that Me First puts out? How have you been able to keep that on any level going?
Well, I've been working on my own project. I write music under the name The Revolt. We have some releases on Pirates Press Records, and I've been kind of revisiting some of those songs that I may have thought were lost causes, but have grown to actually like. I've been working on various covers on the ukulele to do live streaming things, and I've been doing personal greetings, all sorts of things.
Nice.
For people's weddings and bar mitzvahs, and trying to be useful and stay busy and earn a little bit of money in these uncertain times. Actually, as far as discipline, it's actually been really good because I just sort of I took all the stuff from my practice space and put it in the extra room, and I've just been kind of sitting in there every day and instead of even having to drive 20 minutes to the practice space, I just walk across the house and set myself to it. So for discipline, if not for any other way, it's actually been kind of positive. But not playing in front of people, it's a very strange,
Oh, yeah. Well, as a fan, it's definitely good to hear that you guys are still staying active in the bar mitzvah scene. I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, nor would I.
Yeah.
Nor would I. No, go ahead.
I was going to, if you had something to say, because I actually had a question about that album.
No, go ahead. By all means, if I remember.
Yeah. Well, I'm a really big, because live albums are some of my favorites. I don't know. We're on a Guns N' Roses podcast, and Live Era is not my favorite Guns N' Roses album, so it's a bad example. But a lot of my favorite bands, including Me First, are my favorite albums are live albums. So as someone who has heard that album a lot, I was wondering, how did Ruin Johnny's Bar Mitzvah come together? Because I've seen the videos and I've heard the songs, but maybe I don't know of a good Me First and Gimme Gimmes like forum or fan community where we exchange stories. I don't know a lot of the stories, so I'd love to hear about that.
I would thank you for asking that, Matt, because it was recently the anniversary of it was bar mitzvah. They really Long Island Jew just came at me because that was bar mitzvah. I was bar mitzvah October 26th, so it just recently passed, 1996, and I only remember that because the Yankees won the World Series that night. So that's the
God damn.
Yeah.
What a day. That's like a harmonic divine convergence.
I know. That's how I became a man. That's how I became the Yankees won the World Series.
Hell of a day to become a man.
So I would love to know
is
that.
Long Island the Mets or is Long Island the Yankees? I always forget which.
I would argue
regional out there.
It's more the Mets. I would say it's more of a, even though the Mets are in Queens, but which is I guess technically Long Island, but part of the city. I just think New York, especially upstate, it's like the Yankees are going to out like they're everywhere. Yankee fans are everywhere, but I would give Long Island to the Mets overall. I would say.
Right.
So that's a fair question.
Well, I mean, even if Long Island is like some kind of permanent opposition to the city, it's still in relation to the city. I'd like whether or not it's a borough. I think it's, you know.
Well, yeah, it's not
definitely
as bad as asking, the Islanders or the Rangers, which one is clearly one of the in the other. But I would say Mets because my family is from Brooklyn, so that's. I think that's
not Yankee territory.
My grandfather hated the Yankees because he was an old Giants fan. Look at this. We got off on a baseball tangent. I love it.
Yeah. I'm from Portland, so we got the pickles. I guess I can rock the Seahawks.
The pickles. Oh man. We got the Portland pickles.
Yeah, we have a what is it, like a minor league baseball team called the Pickles.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, nice.
And there's a giant pickle playing baseball bat on the sign. It's wonderful.
Go when it's safe.
Yeah, that's the plan. I almost went with my work once, but I was not the guy that got the shift.
All right. Well, here's to more pickle games in the future. But we would like to know about the bar mitzvah before we lose that. Sorry for going off on a bar mitzvah tangent.
Yeah, I came untethered myself.
Well, did the bar mitzvah was it a request of the bar mitzvah boy to have you do an album there? Was somebody related to how did you come? How did Me First and the Gimme Gimmes come to record a live album at a bar mitzvah? Was the rabbi in on it? What happened?
No, it was the party. It was not the actual no. He didn't recite any passages from the Torah or anything like that. It was just the I don't know if you call it the reception, but it was a professional relationship. It was Mike's publicist's son. And I think it was Mike that suggested it because Mike's publicist, I guess just in conversation, casually announced that his son was about to be bar mitzvah. And Mike said he wanted us to play it. And it was down in the Malibu Pacific Palisades kind of area up in the mountains. I remember sound being an issue before anybody had ever plugged in. They put those sort of glass partitions around the drums, and that already sort of put me on edge. This is going to be either too much for people or just not what they're going to want to hear. And then it got started, and really nobody was very receptive. In fact, some people were holding their ears. And but the good news was that the over at the little bar, a little booth over towards the end of the whatever it was, like a luncheon room or something like that. They were serving wine, but they were serving it in mud.
Nice.
So eventually,
it's all gefferschnicked. Okay.
Yeah, they got warmed up and became a lot more receptive, especially the young people. People even started dancing. Because it was a recorded event, we did the set twice, which was also very awkward. And I mean, you can hear it. That's the actual reactions of people. Very towards the beginning, golf claps. You know what I mean? Less than a half a dozen people or so.
This wasn't on video. I'm sorry if that's a known fact. Was this recorded?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little dark, but you can kind of make it out.
Okay, because this sounds like it was one of those viral SNL skits. I think Ashton Kutcher was the host, where it was a punk rock band reunited at a wedding. And you guys really were ahead of the curve of just the humor of it all and just inventiveness of just that album years later. Yeah, maybe it touches my kosher heart a little bit. And I'm not really kosher, but a little bit more. But that's still, I guess, a creative and fun thing and that you did that where would you get that live experience anywhere else? You know, different way to do it.
I love bar mitzvahs. I went to so many in Pittsburgh that, you know.
Yeah, they're a good
and they
time.
were always my favorite parties.
No, bar mitzvahs are definitely always a good time. I've only been to a couple, but I've always enjoyed myself.
Nice.
Yeah.
Britzes
are a close runner-up.
Yeah, for sure.
As far as parties go.
I was going to say, Spike, it's definitely really cool because I know, like, Brando actually touched on this in one of his podcasts a couple weeks ago. A lot of the times live albums, you know, like, I don't have to tell you, you're in the business. Sometimes live albums are not so genuine. So it's really cool to hear all that, everything you hear on that record is kind of like, at least like crowd-wise, the reactions there, like, and it really feels real, and that's why I think
and
I like
uncomfortable.
the album so much. Yeah,
there's a palpable sense that of the awkwardness and discomfort on both sides.
Yeah,
not everyone would have the balls to do that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, eventually they all had a good time, man, and even this guy, I think he has passed now, but the guy that sang the French version of Seasons in the Sun, he got up and sang a song with us, you know. And Mike sort of, I got to credit him with engineering awkward situations because I think he kind of gets off on it. I think that's how the Pirates game happened. I don't know if you heard about that, but we were booed by, upwards of 30,000 people, Pirates fans, in Pittsburgh at PNC Park when it was like 2006 or something like that. And it was fireworks night. And we were meant to play 3 nights, but were summarily fired after one. And I remember when the booing started, and then sort of crescendoed into, like, it was most of a stadium of 35,000 people, while fireworks were going off all around us.
And
like
why were
bombs.
you being booed? Like, what caused this?
Because, I mean, I don't know. We hadn't practiced in a year. It was not what people from the suburbs of Pittsburgh were looking for. Like, they wanted Rascal Flatts. You know what I mean? Like, and they got an unrehearsed Me First in the Gimme Gimmes instead.
Wow.
And but when the booing really got going, we looked over at Mike, and he was having the time of his life. The only one of us that was. Luckily, we were out at second base, like out of projectile range. But for somebody who grew up in that city and was kind of bullied and ostracized in that city, it was this crazy. It was like, it was like being on psychedelics without having,
traumatic
actually
for you.
taking them.
That's pretty incredible.
That's traumatic for you. It sounds like
it was very traumatic. They had fireworks going off from the top of the U.S. Steel building, from barges on the Allegheny River. Like, it was nuts from all over the field, all around us. It was really, we had to wait something like 2 hours to actually leave the stadium.
Blows my mind because it's
fucking Pittsburgh, man. It's all coming down to Pennsylvania, and I understand why. Like, Pittsburgh and Philly are solidly blue, but they are surrounded by deep red.
Yeah. I'm from Portland, so I can definitely relate with that. That's kind of my life every day.
I get it, even being from New York, where I kind of grew up on Long Island. You go out Long Island, it was all red, and the city is blue. But that's why I tweeted today. Can we all just, in some form of it, can we just agree that we all love Guns N' Roses to some degree? So that's why I do this. Yep. So unless there was something else to that baseball story, I want to segue to your 6 degrees of GNR bacon.
No, I'm really interested in this one because I didn't do the research beforehand, so I would be surprised by it.
Well, I only know one, and it's this Spike. This is just I've been able, because of people like Matt and other listeners, I've been able to not only interview people close to Guns N' Roses, but people who are just involved in my favorite bands. But I have to do it under my own theme of Guns N' Roses. So the 6 degrees of, or Kevin Bacon, GNR Bacon, whatever. So the only thing I could find was, I guess it relates to what we're talking about. I'm doing shows, missing shows. It was Download Festival last year. Slash with Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators played. Might have been the same day as Me First and the Gimme Gimmes. Different stage, I believe. That's true, correct?
It very well could be.
I don't even
we kind
know.
of went in and out of the Download Festival. Like, I don't even get to go see, like the bands that I really want to go. Like, I remember we were there, Negative Approach played, and I was not able to get over and see them because I had never seen them in all the years that they've been a band and in all the years that I've loved, especially the Tied Down record. I'd never gotten a chance to see him, and John Brannon is still, like, you still can't take your eyes off him. Just energy and intensity, like exactly, sort of what 80s hardcore represented to me, but now in the 21st century, and you can't say that about a lot of people. But no, we very well could have played the same thing as Slash. Like he plays Download, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking at the professional lineup from that year, so unless I'm on crack, it was headline. The big headliners were Def Leppard, Slipknot, and Tool, and Slash was on that, like right beneath it. They were one of the other big headliners, but it was you still see a pretty big. You're not in the fine font on these posters. Sometimes it's so interesting to see who they. Like the font sizes, it's like, how do you feel as a band? I mean, at least you're still on the poster, I guess. But I can read it.
Probably about 6 degrees and about 6 miles, I would say.
I gotcha.
Slash at the at that particular festival, anyway. I don't think we were playing the same stage, but
no, I don't believe so. But it's a nice shoehorn because sometimes I find out 6 degrees. So have you?
Yeah.
As far as I don't know if Me First has ever during a live show covered any sort of Guns N' Roses song or.
No, we have not. But I mean, we might do the Paul McCartney, James Bond soon. Okay. I would certainly consider that.
Okay.
I was actually going to.
I remember when I first moved to California, and they used to call Aerosmith the poor man's Rolling Stones, and then they called Guns N' Roses the poor man's Aerosmith, which I think is unfair, especially for the Appetite for Destruction record. But I remember there was this weird sort of crossover fan base that Guns N' Roses enjoyed at the time, where, like, if you listen to bands like the Joneses or the Sea Hags, all these bands that kind of had their origins in punk music or in punk bands, when that record came out, like, it made a big splash with them. I think almost even before it had mass appeal. It was with these, like, kind of rockers and punk rockers.
Yeah, well, Duff, the bass player Duff McKagan, he played in a punk rock band called the Farts, and he also played in 10 Minute Warning up in Seattle. And so I know he's got a lot of punk rock cred, at least by the time Appetite came out. So I'm sure that definitely helped. Yeah.
I appreciate that perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Spike. So what was your reaction when it came out? Since are you part of that crossover as well?
No, but like a lot of my friends, when I moved to California at first, were like, that was when I first heard the Joneses record or like the Gun Club record or Mommy's Little Monster. There were all these records that back in Pittsburgh was sort of more hardcore oriented, and then by the time I left, it was like well into that sort of crossover, like kind of metal thing.
Okay.
Like Age of Quarrel had come out, and that was sort of like, that was huge. And most hardcore bands had kind of Agnostic Front had become something of a metal kind of like influenced hardcore band. And so that was sort of more what the music scene was in Pittsburgh. That, and then also this kind of UK 82. Everybody there looked like kind of UK 1982, if that makes any sense. Like double mohawks and spikes and acrylic paint on their jackets and stuff. And I looked like kind of a nerd who just like wrote shit on my clothes. You know what I mean? And but California was different. California was where I really, like I had heard the Cramps in Pittsburgh and dug the Cramps, but in out west, like they were really, they were really a cultural phenomenon out here, as well as like the Gun Club that carried on like years after those like those releases. Like after the Fire of Love, the Gun Club record was released, like years afterwards. I think people recognized pretty early on what a classic that record was. But like you would find like those same people that listened to that stuff were really responded to the Guns N' Roses record too, along with all these like metalheads and rockers. Like it and then so you sort of saw the start of Guns N' Roses kind of mass appeal.
Yeah. I remember I was at a party with a friend of mine, and he had brought a friend, and I had never heard it before I brought up Guns N' Roses to him, but this guy was like a huge metalhead, and he goes, yeah, Guns N' Roses is like the most diverse band I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but I could like I could see if you were a metalhead then being the most diverse band you ever heard, you know? So
no. Yeah, but they certainly updated some things. It was kind of like, you know, when I first heard the Strokes record, I thought like, well, this is exactly new. And then I remember it growing on me, and I still love it. And, you know, even though it's still, you know, it may not have been something new, but it was definitely an update with some catchy tunes and good sounds.
The Strokes got a new record coming out, don't they? My friend's my buddy Dylan, who actually is the one that showed me first in the Gimme Gimmes, he's a big SNL guy. I know they're just on SNL.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
I missed it.
Spike, what are you listening to now? What's in, are you at home listening to, is that part of your daily routine, is listening to music or no?
Yes. I listen to a lot of boleros. I've got a group called Los Nuevos Bajos.
Nice.
And which that's another project that I have been involving myself. Well, you know, not so much over the last year, but because I can't go to Panama, nor can they come to the States. But boleros, they're like Spanish love songs. I don't know how old the art form is, but right around the mid-century, you were seeing a lot of these trio groups. So it was always like these three principal like singer player figures, and it was all sort of, it all adhered to a certain specific style, and they were coming out of Mexico, they were coming out of Cuba, they were coming out of Puerto Rico, and they sort of elevated boleros. They played them in their own specific idiom, like bands like Los Panchos. I don't know if you've heard of them, but in Mexico, they're considered like, you know, Elvis or the Beatles.
Yeah.
Los Diamantes, Los Tecolines. There's all these great groups. And I've had the dream that I was finally able to realize over the last couple of years of starting a band as kind of a tribute and playing these songs, you know, sort of like a Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, but for old Spanish love songs.
Love it.
And I talked to some Panamanian friends of mine, and they were really receptive to the idea and happened to know a bunch of other, like to say capable musicians is an understatement. Like, especially the drummers down there, they're just like, you know, like they're really good timekeepers. I don't know. I don't know how to say it without like understating it, you know? The drummers down there are not messing around, the Panamanian drummers, and nor are any of the other players. Like a lot of these guys had played with Ruben Blades. I don't know if you know who he is. He's an actor and singer. But we were able to record over the last 2 years and 2 trips to Panama City a full-length record that we are still, I mean, you know, the pandemic kind of put everything on hold, but eventually we're going to release it, you know.
Okay.
And the project is called Los Nuevos Bajos. It means the new lows in Spanish, if you're interested. We have a 7-inch record, in fact, in lieu of a full length on Del Corazon Records here in San Francisco, California.
Oh, cool. Is that available online anywhere, or is it just like local shops or whatnot?
Local shops, or I think you can find it. It's streaming online
cool.
as well. Certainly on Spotify or your other platforms.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something I've been involving myself with.
No, that's really cool because my family comes from Spain, so I'll have to check that out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, boleros, they're like, to me, they're like Beatles songs. They're like classic pop songs, but with just, maybe some more minor chords. And it's strange to me what a forgotten art form it is, because the songs are so good. But I really do. I recommend checking out the groups especially from Mexico and Puerto Rico and Cuba from the mid-century, like Los Panchos and Los Tecolines, Los Diamantes, Los Tres Haces, all these great groups from that period that they played almost exclusively boleros, and just like it's this huge songbook of just these amazing songs. And if you have any inkling of like what they're saying, like the meaning behind the words, they're just heartbreaking. In fact, a Panamanian friend of mine pointed out, he said, I don't think there was ever a bolero that was written about anything but the very beginning or the very end of a romantic relationship. Never the middle. Always the very beginning or the very end. So it's always like really dramatic and traumatic and heart-wrenching, but beautiful songs. And then beautifully played by these groups, revived by these groups in the 50s and 60s.
It's exciting that you're still working on so many different creative projects, things that we have to look forward to because there's so much uncertainty, in the world, basically.
Well,
so that we are certain that you're moving forward and you're going to have a lot of new music for us.
Well, not just. I mean, the one thing that this year has sort of shown us is that we, as musicians, and I guess everybody else, I mean, we were the first to close and we'll be the last to open back up, yada, yada, yada. But I mean, like the ability to pivot and adapt is really something that we have to, we have to be able to do. And another, project, I guess you could call it, that I am being involved with is streaming a Christmas special under the auspices of the name Gimme Gimmes TV. And so we're trying to we're putting together a sort of variety show, if you will, because as we've seen, the sort of live music experience, it doesn't always translate exactly how we'd like in a sort of streaming scenario. I don't know if you've noticed that, Like, I spend a lot of money on lights and sound and all this, and it doesn't translate. Like, you sort of have to diversify the entertainment, if that makes any sense at all.
Someone needs to figure out how to make that work, because for some reason, like we were talking about sports earlier, there are sports I don't have to go to a game. I mean, I will go to games, but the experience, especially football on TV, it's like you're being there half the time. But why can't they make concerts like that? So I understand at the beginning the necessity of it, just to get out there and keep active, and people so they don't forget you. The first few podcasts I did after I couldn't go back to the studio were bare bones. But if we have the technology that's out there and they get creative with it, we talked earlier just about your creativity. I know we can talk about Christmas special, but you had the creative thought to record during a bar mitzvah. Well, not during a bar mitzvah, the bar mitzvah party. But I can only imagine what you'll come up with streaming wise.
Oh, well, check it out. It is set to air on Veep.com on December the 12th, which is a Saturday.
All right, perfect.
During a pandemic, so
this is all good news.
Presumably, we've got nothing better to do than to watch the Gimmes endeavor to entertain the world through the ether, through the tubes. What was that guy? Wasn't he from Alaska? The guy that said the internet is a series of tubes. He called it. I thought that was great.
Are you guys going to do more Christmas stuff for the special, or are you guys going to stick to the main repertoire?
Yeah, we've got some Christmas surprises in store, and some special guests that if you don't already know, then you will afterwards, and I think that you'll dig.
That's great. You have to slip in now, because after doing this, one GNR reference or one little reference, or to make, because I'm glad we have all this new music. I was hoping for like a secret 6th Degree of Kevin GNR Bacon to find out, but we didn't find out any.
Yeah, no. Well, the Slash thing was
You don't have to. You really don't have to.
If I was 6 miles away from that stage, we did play the same festival. You said so yourself.
Oh, I know. That'll always be there. I'm just saying I want a more direct one. Like
you can't take that away from us.
Oh, I'm not. I'll tell you the real lame ones that I've used. Tom Green, the comedian, saw Guns N' Roses once, so we just talked about that concert. One of my favorites is I had the actress. She's from the Walking Dead. I can't. Oh my God. Pollyanna Mcintosh. I knew it would come out. Pollyanna Mcintosh from The Walking Dead, and the connection there was Slash likes The Walking Dead. Like he hangs out with the creator.
That's pretty good.
But she told.
I grew up in Pittsburgh, which is the city of the living dead.
That works too.
That's George Romero. That's where he filmed all of Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead.
All right.
Am I stretching? Am I reaching?
No, that's right up my alley. That's right up my alley. You're not reaching. I'm reaching. I told you this was.
I'm sure.
We had a great
Slash
conversation.
likes all those movies too. So
exactly. My goal is to talk about zombies and horror with Slash, but it was funny when Pollyanna mentioned. She's like, "Oh, I have a secret one. No one would ever know was Slash." And she just happened to be in an elevator with him once, and nothing happened. So I guess maybe I had a little hope that you were in an elevator with Slash or something at some point. But
to tie it back at least a little bit to Guns N' Roses, I remember you were saying a little earlier with the Boleros record that you were waiting to put it out with everything pandemic-y wise, and it hasn't been confirmed, but that's kind of the rumor with Guns N' Roses, that the album that they've been working on is being delayed by the pandemic. And I guess my question would be, is that the trend you're seeing around the music industry? Is everyone kind of like holding on to their records and waiting for a chance to promote them?
Just in general, people are holding on to their money.
Makes sense.
Since 1997, there hasn't been a sure thing as far as like recorded music in the first place. And then since the pandemic, even though it has things with recorded music have improved because it's something that you listen to in the privacy of your own home, it's still with things like Spotify, where the head of the company famously said, like, you can't what did he say? Musicians can no longer release things every 3 or 4 years and expect to earn a living.
Yeah, it was something along those lines.
He could invent something one time and expect to, for his, great grandchildren to live on private islands. But, God, I forget that was a real tangent for me. Where did we start with that? Sorry.
Oh, I was asking if that's the trend. If that's the trend you've really been seeing around the music industry, is people waiting to put out the records until they have a proper way to promote them.
No, the trend I see in the music industry is the trend that I see sort of continuing, which is just sort of. We don't get the respect. Not that we necessarily deserve the respect of professions like teachers and and all these other people that do things that sort of measurably improve and affect people's lives. But we certainly don't get the respect that I feel that we are due. And there's a lot of caveats with that because a lot of musicians feel they're entitled to more respect than they are actually due. But I don't know, the trend I see these days, especially in the States, not so much in Europe, but especially in the States, is sort of a lack of respect for the color and the vibrancy that music and the arts give to our lives, especially when we're stuck at home, for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? Like, we need color in our lives. And, I think last night's speech in front of those flags, like, that looked like a truck stop, didn't it? You know what I mean? Like that wasn't, that's a presidential address during, you know what I mean? Like he had that had to be like the highest rated spot on television in the last, who knows how long. And the best thing that they could muster was like a truck stop display. And that to me is indicative of like where our priorities are culturally and artistically. And
No, for sure.
And towards the end, when people really started to get tired of the communist system and the Soviet Empire, I think one of the reasons was is that it sucked all the color out of everything. Like the people when the wall came down in Berlin, the people that lived near the wall on the western side, when they knew that the Easterners were coming, they cynically bought bushels of bananas and charged like 50 marks a bunch to these unwitting East Berliners because they didn't know and because they weren't allowed bananas because bananas were considered this sort of decadent. Like they sucked the color out of everything. And then it kind of seems like what we're doing from the other side right now.
No, for
You
sure.
know, we don't have an evil empire to compare ourselves against and to show that we're better than. So it's just like the best you can do is get to work. You know, at our worst, we are you know, like lazy, shiftless. You know, like we at our like we don't put in the manual like day-to-day tedious work. You know. And we think that our offerings are somehow, you know, like I do think that musicians get an inflated sort of self-image sometimes, especially the successful ones, especially ones that grow to be successful very early on in their lives, and I think are not may not be mature enough to handle it.
It made me think of the Save Our Stages and just how many people are out of work. People that I'm sure help out me first in the Gimme Gimmes, and it's bands like Guns N' Roses. I think they got PPE loans, but it's not about them, like how much Axl makes or Slash. It's all these engineers and people who build stages and roadies and just people who schedule things, and you don't think about it. You know how many of these small venues that bands that you guys love. I guess that's part
and
of
if you
the
think
cool thing.
musicians are lacking respect, like those people aren't even thought of.
That's what I'm talking about, right?
Or
Exactly.
or considered.
So that's so important. It's not just a band gets up and plays. I mean, you've had the luxury of just even during a bar mitzvah, you had your challenge. You need so that it always takes more than just the band. It takes people who aren't rich, who aren't famous, who are helping these bands sound and look as good as they do. They are really hurting right now.
And if they go under, like, I'm sorry, and I don't think this is political. If they go under, somebody's dragging them there right now.
I support whoever supports getting our stages saved.
It's somehow seditious to suggest that like we get some kind of amnesty, like on everything. You know what I mean? Like that, like taxes, bills, like they're still coming, or they're being deferred to a later time where we owe the entire amount from the pandemic. Like it's not gonna stand up. So I keep repeating to myself, it's like some kind of bullshit affirmation, and also a way of saying like things are tough all over. I keep saying we're in good company. Anytime like I'm thinking about my financial future, or I'm talking to a friend that's worried about what they're going to do or how they're going to make money, I say, hey, we're a good company. They can't drag us all down. And then it's also an affirmation because I hope that I am in good company, and that we show some solidarity for one another, including people with differing political beliefs. But it seems like,
that's, I hear with you. And that's what this podcast is about, because I know I have listeners on both sides of the aisle. And, while I may lean a certain way, it doesn't matter about that. We all come here to talk about, in some way, shape, or form, Guns N' Roses first, and see where it leads us. And we saw, we saw, look where it led. We're nearly talking for an hour here, Spike.
Doesn't mean that it has to burn somebody else, man. That's all that I'm saying. Like, and I don't think that's a partisan belief. Like maybe we could put the fire out just for the pandemic.
You'd hope so.
Yeah, I can understand that.
That sounds like I'm not communist, man. I'm not suggesting that we turn into this completely collectivist kind of system, but Maybe we can cool the hot potato down instead of just like having to pass it around.
Yeah, because like one of the biggest Portland venues, Hawthorne Theater, I just saw a thing where it went up for sale on a big like real estate website, and that's like, I don't know if you guys have played there before, Spike, but a lot of my favorite bands, that's the venue they come to town and play, you know?
Right.
And if we lose,
I don't remember if I played the Hawthorne or not. Is that the one right by the food truck?
It's right across the street from a Fred Meyer's, and it's like an old Masonic lodge. Yeah, so I imagine if I played as many shows as you, it would blend together a bit. But
how about
it's
this?
Like I don't like.
Where have you played? Have you played the Paramount on Long Island?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I played one show in Long Island with the Swingin' Utters, and it was like something out of The Sopranos or something like that. It seriously was. It was bizarre and even disturbing in some ways. But,
what about New York? Where have you played in New York? I'm just seeing if there's any crossover there as well.
Oh man, all over. Played CBGB's.
GNR play. Well, CBGB's died well before the pandemic, but
right. Yeah, absolutely. But what is it? A John Varvatos now or something like that?
Okay.
But we played the Bowery Ballroom, Bowery Electric, Webster Hall, Irving Plaza.
Yeah.
Where else?
GNR and
all over.
They played, so a lot of those same stages. I mean, yeah, they were hurt. It was a hurting industry before, but this is really hurting it. And we just talked about the members, the crew that helps out bands. What about the crew that helps set up the show and that works these venues and aren't Madison Square Garden, that aren't these big, and they're hurting too. But we got to get back to some sort of normalcy.
Musicians' estimations of themselves, I find, are usually in inverse relations with their estimation, especially of the people that work for the actual house that they play in. I feel like that's a very undervalued part of the music industry. But my problem, and I think San Francisco is experiencing a lot of the same problems that New York is that the pandemic didn't create these problems. It just sort of accelerated.
Yeah.
The closure of these legacy businesses that, we had this sort of, kind of Mexican American oriented, like hood outfitters kind of store called Siegel's that had been here for 90 years. It was a fixture in the Mission. And, I guess, I don't know if it was that the landlord like quadrupled the rent or something, but that is certainly the case in a lot of the cases. And then now it's just this graffitied, boarded up storefront with rats and homeless people out front and graffiti, but with the old sign still. You know what I mean? Like that's just one of dozens of legacy businesses like that, including, of course, music venues. And then the music venues that are still sustaining, and I believe will sustain through and out of the pandemic. I think you're going to find that it's going to be more and more corporate and more and more averse to the risk taking that's required to keep a vibrant music scene of scale in any given city. So I think cities are just kind of, yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and it's a nice little segue because I can't thank you enough for your time, Spike, is because not only is where I am right now a radio studio, it has to act like a radio studio. It has to act like a dance studio because my girlfriend is a dance teacher. She teaches little kids, and right now I believe the kids, they are back allowed at the studio. They have to wear masks, but only a certain amount of time. But sometimes, the parents don't want the kids. They don't feel safe yet, even though they've been declared by the governor. So she uses half is my living room as a studio, half of it now is a dance studio at times. So so we got to save our dance studios as well. So I'm kind of being pushed out a little bit. This is live radio, as they say. I have to. It's a happy not yet, but like happy wife, happy life. Isn't that the phrase? So I got to get out of here.
Right. But I also think like in your 70s, you're going to look back at this time and think it may be some of the best,
I honestly,
period of your life.
Me personally, because obviously this pandemic, as we talked about a lot of it, has hurt millions of people, and it's awful. And I hope all of them in some way, shape, or form can recover. I understand if you lost a loved one, that's another story. I personally will look back on this time as a great time in my life. I believe that. And a lot of it is, is because getting to do this podcast. Yes, I love this segue I was able to do because it's real life. But the fact that I was able to connect with a listener of mine, I appreciate every single one who listens to this silly little podcast, Matt, and all the way in Oregon that I can talk to. Lead singer of one of my favorite bands, Spike. I can't thank you enough for your time, and I didn't expect this is the whole point. This is a GNR podcast, and look where it led us. You
right?
Matt, I guess since you're the co-host for the day, do you have any? Do you have a final question?
November rain and beyond.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I'm in Portland, so I'm living in November rain right now. But I just want to say, Spike, thanks for talking with us today. I've been a really big fan for a long time, listening to you since I was a kid, and I just want to say, like, your singing has inspired me a lot. So thank you a lot.
Thank you so much, Matt. And man, be safe up there.
Oh yeah, you too, Spike, and you too, Brando. I mean, wherever you are, take care of yourself, take care of each other, pretty much.
You
right?
too. Well, Matt, you're gonna hang on,
We're in good company.
Matt, you're gonna hang on a little bit because we got to do a fan obsession, but we're gonna.
Oh yeah,
we got to make sure my girlfriend understands that part of it, but. We could have been on the phone with Spike for another hour, and it's one of those things that I'm getting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm getting the light for it. She's playing her own music to kind of rush me along.
That's more than anybody wants or deserves. Too much coffee today, man. You caught me at a bad time.
No, I caught you at a great time. Spike, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Brandon.
You got
Cheers,
it.
man.
So that was fun for all sorts of reasons, specifically the end. It just is what it is.
I'm sorry if I got a little too political. If Spike was talking about it, and then I tried,
No, it's all right. I can't help it. We can't help it, and especially when I bring it up. And I'll tie it into maybe that can lead into a couple things. Actually, I'm going to do with you before we get into shotgun news. Do I have that sound set up? It's set up.
So all I got to say is that you got great names for all your segments.
Thank you. This will be the sound I play for Shotgun News right now. That's what I deserve. I don't have all the buttons set up yet. So Shotgun News. Yeah, Axel tweeted. Right before the election happened. It was a few tweets, kind of like a poem, and I don't know. You can look at the timeline. You can make your own judgments. I don't know if you saw this, Matt. I know you tend to follow on Facebook. I tweeted at Axel's tweet from 2 years ago that said, get out, motherfuckers or whatever, get out and get out and vote. And I responded to that, just to see my followers would respond to it. I don't expect Axel to respond. Any words of wisdom before tonight's the night before? And 3 hours later, he did. Can I take credit for that? Did I prompt him?
I will give you credit for that one, Brando.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's really cool. And I remember when I saw it, I thought, man, I know with the pandemic, a lot of stuff is getting moved to the digital thing, but I didn't know Axel Rants will get moved to the digital plane. So, that's a good thing, right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, like usually you don't get that type of stuff when he's on stage, so it's cool to see it online for.
It's true.
For a bit,
Oh, and by the way, I think I do have it. News. Nice. It is still there. Perfect. It's there. You're still there, right, Matt?
Phenomenal.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm still there.
It's challenging, but the buttons, they are back. So yeah, Axel tweeted, yada yada. There really isn't much more news. I mean, if you want, the pinball machine is news, and check out that episode if you haven't yet. And that's for real. That was a really fun conversation. And stick around for the giveaways through that. They're sending some stuff to me for me to send out to you, the listeners, not you, Matt. I'm sorry. I don't know if this.
No, it's okay.
I don't know if this disqualifies you, but I don't think it does, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet.
I mean, anybody with if any fans get any cool merch, I'm for that. You know, I love. I mean, I like the merch I have. If any, you know, if it can get any situation where cool stuff gets in the hands of the fans is always something I'm a fan of. So,
well, speaking of merch, I don't know if you've checked out Redbubble. It's just it's a hosting site for all sorts of gear, and that's where I put up a brand new Appetite for the Distortion t-shirts. There are stickers. You can order sweatshirts. They have a lot of different variety, and they somehow know how to Photoshop the image you load up into all different models, and they're pretty accurate. So if you wanna check that out, I finally have all these years later merch for sale. But I wouldn't be. Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Matt. I get into radio mode.
I saw it's okay. I saw you were wearing one of the shirts when you did the Live Era podcast, right?
Yeah, I'm going to start to wear them, I guess. That's what people do, wear shirts of I hate doing that. It's true. Yeah, with radio.
It looked good, is what I was going to say.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. I'm happy the way it came out. If you are an avid listener, I'm just not a guy who I don't think I have an ego. I'm probably too hard on myself of anything. I just don't like selling myself. I like talking and chatting with fans and, the opportunities to talk to people who've done really cool things. But the people have been asking for shirts for a long time. And if I'm going to take this podcast seriously, which I do, certainly it's not my job. It's a nice offshoot of my job. But if I'm going to take it seriously, which I should have merch. So there you go. Yeah. It's available. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So I have this sound back. You're a bad apple. My bad apples that are out there.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love the show. It's been great to be involved.
So I don't think I loaded the sound, which I probably should have, considering I knew what I was going to do today, but for fan obsession. So let's do a fan obsession. So obviously we talked about some of your fandom for Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, but let's talk about Guns N' Roses. So when did you, I guess, get into them? Let's start there. When did you first get into the band? How old were you?
Well, it's the very first time, my earliest Guns N' Roses memory has got to be when I was in 8th grade, and some kid brought Appetite for Destruction into school, and he tried to play it on one of the school computers, but as we learned, technical difficulties happen, and right as lunch break ends and we all sit down, Welcome to the Jungle just starts blasting through my entire classroom because the kid doesn't know how to shut it off.
Oh, that's my
awesome. And then that's my earliest memory. And besides that, like I said earlier, I discovered My Michelle on an old Flash video when I was a kid, and I was just like, "Whoa, the coolest song I've ever heard!" Little 13-year-old me, and then that led me to Appetite for Destruction. Led me to and then I think that was like 2002, 2003 when that happened. So I started reading about all the mythology of the band and Chinese democracy. And it's like, when you're a kid, that type of stuff excites you. Like, you know what I mean? Like mysteries, like, and I think and I'm going to give Chinese democracy a lot of credit, because if it wasn't for all that mystery and like trying to figure out when that album was going to come out, I don't know if I would have been as engaged of a fan, but that's kind of where my fandom came up. I remember when all the leaks were happening and all that. So,
that's it's not by design. I've spoken to a lot of fans who, it's not like we're the same age. I'm slightly older. Yeah, I was only 4 when Appetite came out, so I'm still on the younger spectrum, I guess. I was never able to see the original, the Appetite 5 live, but still to meet people like you who came into in the early 2000s with the Chinese speculation, where it was kind of hard to be a Guns N' Roses fan. People would make fun of you for being a Guns N' Roses fan. So it's I've spoken to more than there are plenty of you out there, plenty of us out there.
Yeah, I think I always say cool. that the Guns N' Roses reunion was awesome for a lot of reasons, but also because I can wear my Guns N' Roses shirts and people don't make snide comments anymore. Now they just now they just say, "Oh, awesome shirt," for the most part.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. So, what's your favorite song given the era you came in? Do you have a particular favorite song? Does it depend on the week, your mood?
It's always going to be My Michelle by far. I don't know what it is about that song. I think it's honestly, Izzy's rhythm guitar on that is probably like my favorite rhythm guitar line of all time. And like the song has such good energy. Like to bring up what we brought up with Spike earlier, like it's almost like a punk rock type of vibe. You know what I mean? Even though it's a hard rock song, he definitely has, especially when they play it live and Duff is doing his shouts and stuff in the background. It's just an incredible song, and it'll always be my favorite. Like I always have, like right now, the song I listen to most right now is probably Perhaps.
Okay.
Ooh, are we gonna get in trouble for mentioning that?
Perhaps it exists. Perhaps it doesn't.
Yeah. I had to give that one a shout out. That's my favorite my girlfriend's favorite Guns N' Roses song.
That's fine. You know, when people ask me sometimes, it's like I've heard leaks. I don't keep them, so don't ask me. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
right, moving on.
I'm not the guy. Don't talk to me about that.
I'm not the guy.
Yeah.
And have you ever heard the AFI version of My Michelle?
Yeah. That's actually me and one of my high school best friends got in a big point of contention over that, because as a kid I didn't like it very much and she did, and we'd always go back and forth. But through the years, I used to, you know, when you're a kid and you have like the 5 bands you used to like that you would like hate on just because it was trendy. AFI was kind of one of those for me, because I think I was angry that they went. I think I was more mad about their sound change, because when they were younger they were a really heavy punk rock band.
Yeah. But
nowadays they've changed their sound a little bit nowadays. But I think I was salty they stopped being a punk rock band, so I kind of hated on them as a kid. But you know, AFI, you're okay now. Sorry I was so hard on you when I was younger. I like you guys just fine.
Right on. And full disclosure, a couple things in there. I believe it hasn't been, maybe last year at some point, I reached out trying to get Davey Havoc on the show, you know, using that connection of them covering My Michelle. And honestly, speaking of Michelle, I mean, assuming it's her, I haven't done a true background check, but I have Facebook spoken to the Michelle, the subject of the song. I don't think I'll ever be able to get her on the podcast, but she's very kind behind the scenes, and she likes, you know, my posts, you know, what I do as at least as a social media aspect of it. And I've had her think about it. I don't know if it'll ever, and I get it. I mean, if that's your life, that could be a sensitive subject. So I just want to let you know, I've inquired. She's very cool. She's very active on GNR social media. If you don't know who she is,
she's always been great to fans.
Oh, so there you go. So
from everything. I mean, I just watched the Ritz, because I just bought a Ritz DVD a couple of days ago. And what is it? Axel says in that. There's a song about a friend of mine, and now she's getting autographs, and she doesn't know what that's all about.
I mean, maybe one day.
There's a quote like that.
But I'll never with any of my guests, I'll never push them or pressure them or anything like that. I mean, I can ask as far as much as you can do. Yeah. But you just mentioned. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Michelle, if you're listening, thank you so much for a wonderful song. It means a lot to me.
right on. I'm sure she's happy she went through that. I don't know. So you just mentioned things that you've bought, so do you have a special piece of memorabilia, whether it be something you bought, whether it be something you own? It could be anything.
My favorite piece of memorabilia right now is that I think I posted it when you asked when you were asking about which version of library you have.
Okay.
I actually just bought during quarantine, because I had a little somehow I had a little extra cash lying around. I'm not sure how that worked out, but I bought the 4-disc Westwood One broadcast of the Paris '92 show a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And that thing has been phenomenal, because I've always wanted, because Lenny Kravitz is one of my favorite artists, and Aerosmith is one of my favorite artists. And it's really cool to have a version of Always on the Run and a version of Train Kept It Rolling in good quality. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So that's really cool, man. And speaking of Lenny Kravitz, I responded to somebody this way today as we're recording this, and maybe this is a nice little punctuation on the episode. I posted the Kravitz song, "It Ain't Over Till It's Over."
Oh yeah, I love that song.
Yeah, if you're happy, sad, just come together here on this podcast and let's talk about GNR. Let's end it. Let's end it a positive note.
You know me, I love talking about GNR and music, so I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy you're here, Matt. Honestly, I was really, kind of stoked when I saw. I was like, I think I'm going to open this up to listeners, to quote this episode. And there are names I recognize, people who comment religiously, and you're one of those names. I'm like, this is great. This is an opportunity not just to talk to Spike from Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, but to talk to you out there in the GNR universe. And I'm very just happy that you listened to this little podcast, that you have, you're excited to talk about GNR. You helped me with my interview with Spike, and just thanks for your time today, man.
No problem, man. I love music and I love Guns N' Roses. So if you ever need anyone to chat about those things, I'm always
You're a bad apple. There we go.
My only hope for today is I'm not the one bad apple that spoils the whole damn bunch. That's all I care about.
Depends on the day. Matt,
right.
Thanks so much to you, Matt, to Spike, of course, everybody who's hanging out on another edition of this Appetite for Distortion, bar mitzvah party of a broadcast, as I call it sometimes. When will we see the next episode? Well, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.
The lame ass security, I'm going home.